Hello and welcome to another short summary. This short summary is going to go over the April 27th through April 30th tornado outbreak of 2014. As usual, starting with the overview, a trough, which is essentially just a low pressure, transformed into a closed low pressure system on the 27th, which also happens to be the start of the outbreak. This entire system was in fact predicted a full week in advance from NWS and NOAA models, so very consistent. 82 tornadoes were confirmed over a course of 61 hours. This system would injure more than 300 people and tragically end the lives of 35. There were 9 intense tornadoes, and 2 of those being violent, and caused an estimated $1 billion in damage. And there are 5 notables with this outbreak out of 82. So you can see the system starting to blow up here. I believe this is around the 27th or the 28th. And we have our 27th outlooks with a very wide swath of significant tornado chances and a wide swath of slight and, of course, medium and high. Our first notable here is going to be an EF2, which occurred from Quapaw, Oklahoma to Baxter Springs, Kansas. This tornado would injure 37 and ended 1 life. It tracked 18 kilometers in 13 minutes, so not exactly the fastest moving of tornadoes. The main reason why this is notable is because that there was very little signature on radar, and there was no warning issued for this tornado until Quapaw was already being hit. As you can see here, thankfully I found these 2 images on an NWS website. May have labeled where the rotation is, and this is not exactly a very powerful couplet with the storm velocity and not a very well-defined hook with normal radar, so you can tell how that would be a problem with detection. Our second notable, the first violent, the Ferndale to Mayflower and Villona to El Paso, Arkansas EF4, or EF4s. These 2 twisters had a very long combined track of 66 kilometers, with a sustained maximum width of 1.2 kilometers. I do believe that is 3/4 of a mile wide. These 2 tornadoes would injure close to 200 people, I believe it is 198, and tragically ended 16 lives. Large concrete barriers were moved, which does definitely signify EF4 strength. And if that didn't, a 30,000 pound, I believe this is a fertilizer tank, was tossed 3/4 of a mile. As is the case with most violent tornadoes, this thing was inconsistent in strength, mainly EF3 for most of its life, but it was possibly EF5. There were some damage indicators that possibly hinted towards EF5 strength, although they're a little too minimal to fully claim EF5 status. And EF3 is next. This EF3 occurred from Tupelo to Bay Springs Lake in Mississippi. This tornado had a path just shy of 50 kilometers. I believe it was like 49.98 or 9.96. Had a width of 400 meters, which isn't, in the grand scheme of things, is much wider than average, but with notables is a little smaller than average. This tornado did end 1 life and injured 30. Hundreds of homes were destroyed as it pummeled through neighborhoods, and on top of that, a 400-foot tall communications tower was toppled. Our fourth Fourth notable here, the second violent, the Renfro to Louisville, Mississippi EF4 caused 10 fatalities and injured 84. This EF4, just like the other EF4, was 1.2 kilometers wide at its widest, and it tracked a little bit longer. Oh wait, shorter. Sorry, apologies. Tracked shorter than the previous one. That one was 66. This one is 53 and 3/4 kilometers. This thing was EF3 for most of its life, and as you can see, had a strange turn to the north around two-thirds of its way through, which of course put it in the path. Which of course put Louisville right in the path, because Mother Nature has a twisted sense of humor. And even though the supercell has a quite straight and linear path, tornadoes do not follow straight paths. As you can see with the damage photo here in the upper right, some severe tree damage. Our last notable here is the Bellevue to Lynchburg, Tennessee EF3. I feel like the southern states would have a town called Lynchburg, but there you go. This tornado tracked 32.3 kilometers, which tragically killed 2 and did not injure a soul. This thing maxed at around 460 meters wide, which I do believe is around 500 yards wide. Please do remember that yards and meters are different, of course. This thing was EF2 for most of its life, not EF3. And an interesting thing, in case you couldn't tell from this photo, is that this cell is not isolated but within a bigger system. Most supercells are separate from any other type of precipitation or storm by a relatively large distance, although they do tend to merge sometimes. That was just a little unusual thing that I found personally. This is our last notable here. Our significance here, the same pictures as the event overview, is that in the grand scheme of things, this was in season and in place. This is April. April is the start of Tornado Alley starting to ramp up. On average, in terms of tornado outbreaks, this is quite the intense one, of course. That is why this one is notable. However, when you look back at all the notable outbreaks that I've covered, this one is just a slight bit less intense than normal, I believe. And that will do it for this short summary here. A little bit of a shorter one, not too much going on. Unfortunately, I can't find much info, especially when it comes to deep south tornado outbreaks. Hello 22. Glad you could join. The deep south, so Louisiana, Mississippi, even Tennessee, Florida, South Carolina, Georgia, and Alabama tend to, well, I guess with the exception of Alabama, tend to have very poor, like, personal documentation. And what I mean is, like, actual photos of tornadoes. You can find, like, 1 or 2 damage photos per tornado with deep south outbreaks. And that's about it. You can't find an actual picture of the tornado. That's what upsets me a lot.